Timothy William Burton, better known as Tim Burton, is an American director, writer, designer, filmmaker, and stop-motion artist. His cinema is set in Gothic style, among poetry, fairy tales, melancholy, and loneliness. Thanks to his talent, when he was 18 years old, he won a scholarship offered by Disney, and he began his collaboration with this great company. He participated in the creation of the film The Fox and the Hound, but he soon realized that this wasn't his way, and that Disney didn't quite meet his creative genius. After a series of short films and compromises with the major movie studios, and after the making of the film Batman, Burton founded his own production company, the Tim Burton Production. Burton puts his visionary power in the service of an eccentric, poetic, carnival world, with the purpose of subverting, distort, and remove all traces of the wonderful world of Walt Disney. He films the hidden side of the American normality that he reveals still magic, morbid, and phantasmagoric. The success of his films never questioned his unusual personality. On the contrary, he still remains one of the few Hollywood directors whose films are oriented to every kind of spectator, from the youth to the critics, from the movie buffs to the most sophisticated conceptual artists. Each character that he invented, Pee-wee, Beetlejuice, the Joker, Edward, Catwoman, the Martians, the Headless Horseman, or Willy Wonka, carries the imprint of a primitive culture. Each of these characters is the proof of the existence of an America reflected in the super virtuosity of Batman, in a world of rejected people, and why not, in a carnival of fools. Burton helps to prevent the collapse of this high cultural tradition. His films build a world that goes far beyond the traditional American approach to direction and fiction. He creates a world that is different from the traditional cinema, a world that he literally invented, combining an unusual graphic vision, gothic locations, terrifying and extravagant masks, sensual makeup, and a touch of morbidity. This shows that Tim Burton is much more than a director. He's a visionary artist whose universe exceeds the boundaries of established rules and formats. A clairvoyant in the film industry, an artist who perhaps belongs more to the world of poetry than to the world of cinema. Among his most famous movies, there's Batman, a dark film, surely more gothic than macabre, a film that reveals the problematic aspects of a twisted and a little bit schizophrenic mind, the mind of the main character, the Dark Knight. The character who occupied more space in the mind of the director was the villain, the Joker, played by an amazing Jack Nicholson. The Joker, as Tim Burton represented him, is the opposite of Batman in every way. He is as extrovert as Batman is introvert. Is an arch-villain character who moves the viewer's attention on him, on the villain, and puts the superhero in the shadow. Warner didn't like that either, but Burton didn't agree to any compromise. For him, the character of Joker was the most important. The madness, seen as the main form of freedom, doesn't respect any social code. Another important movie is Edward Scissorhands. Edward lives as an outcast into a Gothic castle, and he has scissors instead of hands. He represents a figure somewhere between innocence and monstrosity. Burton describes him as a character who would like to touch but he can't, a character destructive and creative at the same time. We see a close connection with human relations in general, especially those related to the director, who identifies himself in this situation. Burton had some significant problems with communication with people around him, especially during his teenage years. He always had a feeling of not being able to communicate with them. The way Burton represented the environment around the castle where Edward lives describes the end of the world, the American well-being. All these colorful houses, these beautiful manicured gardens, the streets and the car are symbol of decay. The Edward's castle is the symbol of isolation of the hero, still innocent and uncontaminated, in contrast with the architecture of the suburbs. Big Fish is one of my favorite Burton movies. When you watch this movie for the very first time, maybe you don't understand it all the way. You must see it at least 2 or 3 times to understand the deep meaning of the story. Some of you may think that this movie is too surreal and too imaginary, but believe me, in this movie the surreal and imagination are closer to reality than you can imagine. What immediately caught my attention is Tim Burton's ability to adapt texts or films written or directed by someone else and conceive them in his personal way, sometimes changing them completely, other times remaining similar to the original works. It's incredible his talent of entering into the story, understanding the original author's deeper intentions, and also sometimes he completely changed the story. After its adaptation, we realize how it is near to the original, to the sensations that the primary author wanted to give to the audience. This leaves to the viewers a sense of amazement, awareness, analysis, and finally, understanding. Thanks to Burton, Baltimore returned to be as it once was, in the original comics designed by Bob Kane, dark and gothic. The Chocolate Factory comes from a book, but also from a previous movie. Burton decided to be completely different from the previous version, and he concentrated himself on the two main characters, Willie and Charlie, played respectively by Johnny Depp and Freddie Highmore. Burton restored the figure of Willie's father that Stewart had eliminated. He took possession of Dar's novel, adding his visual creativity and his sharp and cruel malice. Alice in Wonderland is based on Lewis Carroll's novel Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and its sequel, Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. Burton's Alice has become one of his typical characters, different from the mass, an alternative and out-of-control girl who is a rebel against the conformist and respectable society in which she lives. She feels out of place. Her journey under the ground must be seen as a stream of consciousness, an ever-growing awareness in the transition between adolescence and adulthood. When Alice was a kid, Wonderland was happy, crazy, colorful, and festive. Now the Wonderland is gothic, dark, and sad. It is the reflection of a young girl's state of mind, faced to the new responsibilities in her life. Burton worked on choral material, adding thickness and essence to the characters, giving to the facts a logical motivation. The movie represents the third chapter of Carol's saga, and we can also say that despite the differences, the two artists have something in common: the ability to give birth to new and fantastic worlds. Burton said that for his part, with a light touch, he made her a rebellious, determined, active character, even though she is always hesitant and full of doubts. We are facing Depp's female version. The heart always represented a fundamental element in Tim Burton's life. As we already said, before becoming a director, before discovering his passion for the cinema and his talent and vocation, he was a designer. The heart has never stopped to be in his life, and some painters have a very important role in the making of his movie. They inspire his characters, they help him to express the essence of the topics, and sometimes also to express a concept or his personal opinion. One of the painters that always inspired Barton is Margaret Kane. She's his muse, the one who inspired the aesthetic of most of Barton's characters. She's very important for him, and the point that she'll be the main character of his next movie, Big Eyes. Kane's paintings are characterized by characters who have big eyes. We can see it in Edward Cobb's Bride, Sally, Jack, and so on. Burton himself is an artist, and like any sizable artist, he was the subject of an exhibition at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York. The reason why Burton is not just a director but is considered a real artist is that he reinvented the way of directing, taking inspiration from the popular culture, transforming it in expression of his personal view. He has influenced a whole generation of young artists working in the world of films, video graphics. The Moment's exhibition explored the totality of his creative work, retracing his path from the early drawings dating back to his childhood until his last masterpiece. They expose more than 600 rare drawings and never seen before, paintings, pictures, storyboards, puppets, and costumes, some of them never been made or that are not well known. We're talking about personal projects that reveal his talent as an artist, a photographer, an illustrator, and a writer who works in the spirit of pop surrealism. It's hard to explain what Burton represents for me, but I think that the most appropriate expression is a model to take as an example, because he always had the ability and the desire to get away from reality, a reality that wasn't as he wanted it. Burton celebrates the diversity, people who go over and demand more from themselves and from others. And to do that, they're ready to invent and live in their world. The price to pay is to be called mad. It's fine. It's worth it.